Hello everyone, it's Scott, and we're back with our last installment of March of the Machine, the Aftermath spoilers. And in this video, we're going to look at the instants and sorceries from the set. But before we get into those, special thanks to Caffeinated Gamers for sponsoring our video series. Remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this, because we're almost in a month or so, we're going to be seeing the Lord of the Rings set previews, and we'll be doing some preview and spoiler videos for those as well. So let's get started with March of the Machine Aftermath instants and sorceries. So first we've got Frilled Out. For 1 and 2 blue mana, you get an instant that says return all non-creature, non-land permanents to their owner's hands. So this is a great way if you're for blue to deal with a lot of things on the board that aren't creatures. So planeswalkers, enchantments, and also artifacts. And I think that makes it sideboard potential if we've got a lot of decks that are using a lot of other kind of cards in standard. But right now I see it's probably limited in its overall playability. Next we have Blot Out. For 2 and a black mana, you get an instant, and target opponent exiles a creature or planeswalker they control with the greatest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. So I like this card because it makes sure that your opponent gets rid of the quote-unquote best thing they've got on the board, whether it's a high value mana value planeswalker or a high mana value creature. It allows you to go ahead at instant speed and remove them from the game. And I think that makes it playable in standard. Now, I think because of all the 1 and 2 mana black removal spells we've got right now, how many copies are you playing? Probably not a lot. It might be more of a sideboard card, but I think it is definitely playable in the format. Next, we have Reckless Handling. For 1 and a red mana, you get a sorcery where you get to search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle, then discard a card at random. If an artifact card was discarded this way, Reckless Handling deals 2 damage to each opponent. So if we got an artifact deck, I think this is a great card to put in there, because you get to basically search your library for any artifact that you really want, and that is a powerful ability. The problem is, though, that we really don't have a deck that's really built around artifacts. And based on where we are in standard right now, I don't see one in the near future being part of standard. So I think while conceptually it's good, in practicality, I don't think we're going to see very much play with this, if any play. Next we have Animus Might. For 2 and a green mana, you get a sorcery. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a legendary creature you control. So target creature you control deals damage equal to twice its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. So I think this is a great spell in a Legends deck. And as we've talked about throughout the spoiler videos, there are a lot of legendary creatures in standard right now, and green has gotten more of those, and I think we're going to see, whether it's because of Thalia and the Githrock monster decks that are out there or others, that green's going to have more of a role to play, and that means that this card has a bigger place, because 1 mana, do enough damage probably to kill anything, is a very good value. Next we've got Open the Way. For X and 2 green mana, you get a sorcery. X cannot be greater than the number of players in the game, so this means in standard it's going to be X equals 2, and in Commander game it could be X equals up to 4, depending on where you are in terms of the mana that you have. And then the nice thing about the card is you get to reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X land cards. So in standard that's 2 land cards, in Commander it could be up to 4, and put those land cards onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And I like this card because it's going to allow you to get tri-lands and dual lands, or lands like those from Kamigawa, and that's a really good thing. So it's not limiting you to basics. So I think this card is very playable in any kind of ramp deck. Next we've got Undercity Upheaval. For 1 and 2 green mana, you get a sorcery, and it has Undergrowth, and you distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard as you cast this spell. Creatures you control gain vigilance until the end of the turn. So I think this was set up for a graveyard deck, and we've got several in standard, several versions of that in standard. And I think that's going to make this card playable, and it's a really nice way to take, not only get value from some of the creatures that, you know, rely on things being in the graveyard, but also then to use those same creatures that are in your graveyard to go ahead and put +1/+1 counters on the creatures that you have to build your team up and hopefully be able to swing in 1 or 2 turns to go ahead and defeat your opponent. And going into the multicolor cards, we have Campus Restoration. For 3, a red and a white, you get a sorcery where you get to return up to 1 target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And you get to exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. So it's kind of a typical melding of white and red abilities. You get to exile 2 cards, and you get to return an artifact or enchantment. So this would have to go into a deck that would have the artifacts, would have the enchantments in its graveyard to make it worthwhile. Because 5 mana for 2 cards just really isn't enough, because you're probably spending all the mana that you have to cast this on the turn it comes into play. And next we have Cosmic Rebirth. For 1 and a green and a white mana, you get an instant, and you get to choose target permanent card in your graveyard. If it has mana value 3 or less, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. So, and you gain 3 life. So for 3 mana, you get to go in your graveyard, pull a card out. If it's 3 mana or less, you get to put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, you get to put it in your hand. So I think great value here for 3 mana. And on top of that, you're gaining the 3 life. So it can help stabilize you in the mid to late game if you need that. So I think this is a card that's definitely playable in Standard. Again, it's just finding the right deck for it. And next we have Rebuild the City. For 6 mana, 3 colorless, a black, a red, and a green mana. Choose target land, create 3 tokens that are copies of it, except they're 3/3 creatures in addition to their other types, and they have Vigilance and Menace. So, you know, for 6 mana, you get, in essence, you're getting to put 3 lands on the field and get 3/3 creatures that have Vigilance and Menace. So I think this is an interesting spell. You know, I don't know if the Jund decks are going to want this, but I think it's certainly something that they might want to consider as kind of a top end to build out, to be able to get to the mana you need to cast an Atraxa or Itali or one of the other, you know, 7 or 8 mana spells that are in Standard right now. And that's it. That is March of the Machine, the Aftermath. Thanks for sticking with us through all the videos. Again, please remember to like and subscribe to the content to get further content like this. And thanks again to Caffeinated Gamers for sponsoring our video series. And I'll see you next time.